Thanks for checking out this second dialogue from the Morse Code as a Language playlist. And so this dialogue is about making mistakes and how to address them, handle them, and recover from them. So no matter your Morse code level, if you're just a complete beginner or you're an absolute expert, you will make mistakes. It's inevitable in Morse code. Now, mistakes can arise from a lack of practice or paradoxically from too much practice. Your fingers and your hand can get extremely tired. Also, if you're in a very long QSO or you're in a very long radio conversation, you can kind of lose track where you are, just blank out, and it happens to all of us. So mistakes are inevitable. So we need to know how to acknowledge them, and recover from them. So in this dialogue, there will be Julie and Dan, and we'll assume that Julie and Dan are amateur radio operators, and Julie is checking into Dan's weekly net. Now, a net is just a term for basically just a meeting place on the radio where you'd meet to talk about anything, really. Excuse me. So a common example is a club's weekly meeting to discuss club matters, upcoming events. People in the area can check in, introduce themselves, and so on. So, for example, maybe every Thursday at 7 p.m., people in the area check in at 7.073 megahertz on the 40 meter band. Total hypothetical example. So, in this dialogue, Julie will be giving her name, but she keeps messing up sending it. Okay, so again, we'll jump in kind of midstream into the QSO. Stuff will happen before we started listening. And then when we're done with the dialogue, stuff presumably in real life would happen after we stop listening. Okay, so here we go. We will start out with Julie here. Okay, so, and again, presumably more stuff would happen in real life after that. So, we see Julie messed up a couple times, 3 times, and she handled it differently in each situation. So, when she first sent her name, she sent J-U-L, and then she kind of sent some nonsense stuff. So, here we go. And whereupon Dan sent back the kind of expected JU and then question mark. So here's the question mark. This is very important. It's very important that it's not a letter, it's not a number, but it's one of these I'll just say a symbol, a special symbol in Morse code that's very important to know. So question mark. And you can use it to literally ask questions like, How are you? Question mark. How are you? But often you'll hear it when people can understand part of a sentence, part of a word, like in this case, part of a name, but they don't get the whole thing. So say I'm sending my call sign, and here's my call sign. K0JZS. But say someone doesn't understand the S that I said. Maybe there was some noise on the radio, maybe someone walked in the room and started talking to them at the same time. Who knows? But they get some of it, but not all of it. So say they just don't get the S. So here we go. They might send back to me, K0JZ question mark, and whereupon I would send K0JZS. Okay, so that's how the question mark is often used in Morse code. So, yeah, so Dan sends back JU question mark, and then BK. We've seen BK before. It's just a very common way to end a sentence, saying back to you. Back. And so then Julie tries to send her name again, and she makes a mistake, but she handles it a little differently, I think a little better. So she does So in this case, she just didn't stop and do nothing. She tried to send what she messed up on. So she sent JUL and messed up. Something like that. But then she sent LIE. And then back to you, Dan. Back to you. So that's a little better than doing nothing. But, maybe Dan's still a little confused. I mean, that is still a little confusing because she sent some characters and then sent LIE. I mean, who knows what's in the middle? Or if someone messes up and then sends some characters, who's to say they're not messing up on the characters they sent after the mess up? So he just wants some more clarification. So he sends another another question mark, like, what? Okay, so back to you, Julie. Explain to me what you're trying to send here. And so she goes to send her name again, but makes a mistake yet again. But this time she handles it how I personally believe it should be handled. Okay, so this is what she does. So Julie sends this after she messes up. Technically it's 8 dits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In practice you might send 7 or 10, but you want to send, I would say, more than 5, because 5 dits is the number 5. So I would send at least 6 dits. I wouldn't send 30 in a row. I would try to aim for about 8. Okay, and this reminds me of kind of like if I'm typing on the keyboard and make a mistake, I might kind of pound the keys. To me, that's what, or if I'm talking and I mess up, I might be like, it reminds me of that. So 8 dits in a row fast. Says to people, hey, I messed up. And to me, it says everything, I messed up. So let me just start over. Let me send from the start. Because if I send after the JUL, it still might be confusing in some cases. So I'm going to send it again. She does JUL, messes up, sends about 8 dits, and then sends her name to fix her mistake. And then she says, hey Dan, back to you. And I'm sure she was glad to send it back after that, because maybe now Dan finally, she corrected her mistake and maybe he can understand her this time. So now Dan says, so we've seen this before. If you're saying to someone yes or affirmative or I understand, in voice you can say Roger. And that's what this R is. And typically when people send it, they send several R's in a row. You could just send one, but it's often so it doesn't get confused with something else, like an abbreviation or a mistake or whatever, or another word, you send a couple R's in a row. So Dan says, okay, I understand. And then he just repeats her name. Julie. Okay, so I hope this dialogue and discussion helped you learn some Morse code. So we learned about, just in general, making mistakes and several ways you can handle them. We learned about how to ask questions with a question mark. So one way you can make a mistake and then just do nothing and hope they understood you, and you'll probably get a what? Question back to you. You could, if you mess up, just send the part you messed up on, and that's a little better, but it could still be confusing to people. So again, you might get a, or in Julie's case, someone might send the parts that they could understand, and then the question mark, and then send it back to you. And that's extremely common. That is very common on the radio with call signs. But the best thing to do, in my opinion, is that you make a mistake on something, just start over. Just start over. Send after you make a mistake. Kind of that wipes the slate clean. And then just send your name again. Okay? So, for watching, and I will next video. Bye-bye.